Morning, church, and it's so good to see all of you here this morning. Good to see new faces. Good to see returning faces. Good to see those who haven't been with us for a long time come back here again. So it's really good to see all of you this morning. Now, this passage of scripture that we've just read is a very interesting one. Yet another interesting scripture. Every week I say this regarding the scripture that I preach about, because John really knows how to pick out the interesting stories. And today we're going to learn something about laying by the pool. All right, it's a lesson from laying by the pool. Now, recently, there was a public holiday one of these months, and when it's a public holiday, usually I like to stay at home, right? Because that's the only time you get to stay at home and really enjoy the chaos of the house. Not enjoy the comfort of the house, enjoy the chaos, because I've got two toddlers, right? So that morning, I decided to take my two kids down to play, and we passed by. It was a really hot day, right? As you all know, these few months, it has been really hot. And so I passed by, our condo has a pool. I passed by this guy, and he was just laying out there in the sun, cooking himself, We played for an hour, came back, he was still there, right, enjoying himself. I greeted him. And then I remember I had to go out and get lunch. And when I went down, I had to pass by the pool, and I saw him still there in that same position. And he wasn't moving. I decided I need to check up on him to make sure he's doing all right, because he's been laying there in the sun a bit too long. And I was like, hi. And it's like, oh yeah, it's a really nice day to lay out here in the sun. I'm like, don't you feel hot? He told me, well, it's comfortable. It's nice, it's relaxing. You should try it sometimes. And I told him, I'm doing all that I can to stay out of the sun, but you're doing the opposite. I said, well, enjoy yourself. I went, bought lunch, and I came back. He was still there, laying by the pool. And I guess he was really so comfortable because this time he had fallen asleep. The book was on top of his head, and he was just there asleep. I went back, had my lunch. I decided to take a peek out of the window to see if he was still there. And to my surprise, he was still there. And by then, it was close to 3 in the afternoon. The sun was really hot, and he was just there, still asleep. I was thinking to myself, should I really check up on him this time? Because he might not be, something might not be right, But then I decided, you know what, I'll check up through the window a few minutes later, or maybe 30 minutes later. I went to the window, I looked out, he was still there. Different position, he was back reading his book again. But basically, he spent his entire day just laying by the pool. Of course, I never seen him after that again, because I guess he's a real busy man, and I think that public holiday was one of the days that he chose to lay there. I guess he was really comfortable. I guess he enjoyed himself. I'm not sure how his skin condition was after that, because I think for those of you who have suffered a sunburn, it's not really nice, right? But sometimes laying by the pool, it's a luxury, right? It's a luxury that don't come by that often. And it's something that, if you are probably into it and you get into this habit of laying by the pool on your off days or whatnot, it can get really comfortable. It can get really nice, relaxing, right? But oftentimes, an hour or 2 is the maximum. And then we want to get up and get on with our day, right? But here, we come to a story in the Gospel of John where we see people just laying by the pool and waiting and expecting for things to happen. Laying by the pool and expecting healing to happen. Laying by the pool and expecting their life to just go on and be normal. Laying by the pool and expecting that their incomes and their finances would just settle itself. Laying by the pool and expecting their families to take care of themselves. And this is actually what the story is teaching us. There's something really interesting about this story, and we're going to go into it one by one. So let's go straight into it. And if you look at verses 2 all the way to 3, it says this. There was a pool called Bethesda, and then there were a multitude. So it means there were crowds of invalids, the blind, the lame, and the paralyzed. And then the author of John highlights one particular person. And he says, this man who was an invalid was laying there and had laid there for 38 years. It beats the guy that I've just mentioned earlier who laid by the pool for almost the entire day. This guy laid by the pool for 38 years. I wonder how he could ever survive that 38 years just laying there, not moving at all. Now, there's something about this pool, right? This pool of Bethesda, there was a myth. And I say a myth because it was never proven in the gospel. Nowhere in the gospel do you find that this pool of Bethesda actually had healing properties. But why would people come to this pool? Because they believe that this pool had healing properties. They believe that there was some supernatural stirring going on in this pool. Now, if you read the entire passage of Scripture, John actually takes the time to describe this pool, right? So this pool is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate. There was a pool, and it had a roof over it, right? So which has 5 roofed colonnades. Now, basically, why John is taking the time to explain in detail the entire structure surrounding the pool is to let us know where this myth came about. So there was this pool that was located indoors, and it's not really indoors, but then because of its location, the waters were really, really still. And so the myth came about that someone saw a ripple in the water, and then someone decided and believed that that was an angel stirring the water, and whoever got into the waters would be healed. Now, there were really no proof or evidence that anyone was actually healed from the waters of this pool. Maybe there were 1 or 2 occasions of healing. But you can never really verify that healing came from that person entering the pool and being healed. And so what happens is this myth was passed down from generations to generations, and people became obsessed with this pool. They would send their sick there. The sick would travel themselves to that pool, lay by the pool, and just wait for the waters to be stirred so that they could get in and be healed. What happens is, as the Scripture describes to us, more and more myth dwellers gathered and laid by the pool. Well, I guess most of them would come, lay there for a while, and after seeing the crowds and thinking to themselves, you know what, I'm never going to be able to get into that pool, some of them would have left, right? And that's what the gospel sort of describes to us. So this group, they would just come, they would go, it was just a group of people that just kept alternating, right, kept changing. But then there was this one particular man that John highlights who just never left that pool, who just laid there for 38 years. He was crippled. He was an invalid, right? We don't know what sort of sickness he had, but we do know he was crippled. But how bad was he crippled, right? We don't really know the extent of it. But he laid there for 38 years. I'm going to pause right here and bring about a lesson. In fact, 2 lessons that we can learn, right? There's something about this man, right? Let's just zoom in on this man first, right? This man laid there for 38 years. It made me think, why couldn't he move closer? If you read on, his excuse was, no one there. No one is here to help me get into the pool. There was another myth, right? The first person in the pool will be healed. So at the first ripple, you get in, that's your healing, right? And then after that, there's no longer any more powers in the waters, right? And this man's excuse was, someone always got ahead of me, and there was no one to help me into the pool. So that's why I had to lay here, right? Now, the question that I asked myself when I was reading this passage of Scripture is that why didn't this man make the effort to move closer? If he could bring himself to the pool and lay there by the pool, and apparently he had quite a setup because he had his mattress and all this. And if you read on, you'll find that he had a mattress there with him. He had a mat with him. Basic things for him to survive and be comfortable laying by the pool. So why couldn't you move a little bit closer, right? At night, if you're really so desperate for the healing, move a little bit closer. Crawl a little bit closer. After all, you made all the effort to get to that pool. Why not be there at the edge of the pool so that at the moment you see a ripple, you just roll in
You don't need someone to carry you in. But this man just continued to lay where he was, at the same spot, for 38 years. And every time people asked him, why can't you healed? His excuse was, I can't get into the pool. No one helps me into the pool. He just laid at the same spot. There's something about laying by the pool that we can learn. And the first thing is this message of complacency just screams out loud right from the very first few verses that we see. Right? Those people who were laying around there, did they really want to get healed? Especially this man who was laying down there for 38 years, did he really want to get healed? That is the question that I ask. Because if you really look into the background of that pool and the background of being sick and crippled back in those days, it is actually better off to remain in your present situation, being sick, being blind, being lame, being crippled, than to actually get healed. And apparently because that place was such a popular spot, those people who laid there actually could make quite a fortune from being sick, lame, and crippled. By begging, people would actually give them more money than they would actually earn as a normal whole person working for a day's wage. And so the question then for this man who laid by this pool for 38 years is, did he really want to be healed? Was he waiting? And in fact, he was just waiting for a convenient miracle to happen. And that convenient miracle was not so much him getting into the pool and getting healed. The convenient miracle that he was just waiting for 38 years as he laid by the pool was that people would walk by, pity him, and just continue to give him money. And that's why he could continue to just lay there in complacency, and over time, it became a very comfortable resting place that he did not even feel the need to be healed. And when people ask him, hey, do you really want to be healed? He has two excuses prepared. I cannot get into the pool because no one helps me, and someone always gets in before me. From the scripture passage that we've just read, we can see that there was really no effort on that man's part to actually change his present situation. And that's why for 38 years, he laid by the pool. Laying by the pool is a picture of complacency. It's a picture of convenience, comfort, and complacency. And sometimes we have to ask ourselves this very serious question as we talk about us being people of faith. Have we become complacent in our lives? We want God to help us out of our financial situation. But are we just laying there and asking God, pour money into my bank, without taking the necessary steps to work, to save, to cut down on unnecessary spending? And then every time we just leave complacently, we spend carelessly, we don't find a job, we don't work hard at our jobs, we don't put in the effort, and then we just keep praying, God, pour money into my bank. God, give me what I want. And when God doesn't do it, not because He did not bless your life, but because we ourselves have been too complacent, too comfortable where we are, and just waiting and expecting God to pour things out into our hands, overflowing abundant blessings. And then we start to blame God. God is not good. God hasn't been there for me. God hasn't helped me. He's not faithful. Is it our complacency, or is it really God not helping us? Sometimes we really have to differentiate between these two things. We talk about our families. I want to have a good family. I want to have a strong relationship with my spouse, but then we don't put in the effort. We say, God, be the Lord of my family. God, be in the center of my family. But then we are always missing from the house. We say, God, be in the center of my relationship, but then we are not playing our part to be understanding, to be caring, to be loving, and we expect God to do everything, and we just continue to wait and wait and wait for God. You do the repairing work. I'm not going to do anything. Complacency. We talk about wanting to be free from temptation, but we continue to lay by the pool of temptation and not run away from it, not get up and make efforts to move away from temptation. And then we say, God, why? Why am I still trapped in this sin? Why am I unable to break free from this bondage that is holding me back? And at the end of the day, we really have to ask the question, is it really God's problem or is it me? Just laying by the pool and expecting something to happen without putting in that effort. Right? Complacency. We see this man. He also has this tendency of blaming others for him not being able to be healed. 38 years by the pool and you're still not healed, I don't think you have the right to blame others anymore. But yet, he still chose to blame others. No one helped me get in the pool. Someone else always gets in before me. So it's not my problem why I'm still stuck here for 38 years. It's not my problem why I still have to lay here for 38 years. But then this problem of blaming others, sometimes we also have to look within ourselves and ask ourselves, is it happening to me as well? Right? Let's talk about a very simple issue, relationship issue. We say, okay, you know what? You want me to put in the effort? It's really not my problem. I'm the good husband. I'm the good father. It's the wife who is the problem. It's the other person who is the problem. It's my parents who is the problem. We put the blame on others. What about looking and starting with ourselves and see where do we need to change and make the necessary changes? The man could have gone a little bit closer to the pool each day instead of just laying there for 38 years. There's 365 days in a year, right? Imagine him lying there for 38 years. Couldn't he have come up with a plan, a strategy, an action plan to get nearer to the pool if he really wanted to be healed? If we really want our finances to improve, then start praying about it and start working out something to help your finances. If you really want your relationships to be better, start working on your relationships. Stop blaming others. If you really want your family to grow closer, your children to grow up in the ways of God and to be faithful to God, start taking ownership of your family. Taking ownership. That's what's so important. And that is what we all need to do as people of faith. Taking ownership of our actions and not putting the blame on others. We look at the book of Genesis, right? When Adam and Eve ate the fruit that God forbid them to eat, what happened? There was a series of blame that happened. Adam blamed his wife. His wife blamed no one, so the wife had no one to blame, so she blamed the devil. And the devil took the blame. Of course, the devil was at fault, right? But there was a series of blaming going on. And I think today we have to recognize and we have to reflect on ourselves. Change begins and change happens when we can look within ourselves and stop blaming others for what's going on in my life. And so, are you in complacency? Are you still blaming others for what's happening to you? I think this scripture reminds us and teaches us to stop being complacent. If there's anything that we need to do to improve our situation, to improve our life, to improve our faith, we start doing it. If there's anything wrong with our lives, we look at ourselves and not look at others and put the blame on others for what's going on with us. Moving on, verses 8 to 9. Jesus meets this man by the pool. And as Jesus meets him, Jesus says to this man, get up. Right? Before that, you see, Jesus asks him a question. If you look at verse 8, right? Jesus saw this man. He knew he had been there for a long time. He went to this man and asked him, do you want to be healed? It's a very serious question that Jesus was asking him. It's not so much a question of, do you want me to heal you? But Jesus was asking him the question of, do you really want to be healed? Or do you just want to continue to stay here? The man never answered him. The man put the blame on others and says, "Sir, I have no one to put me in the pool when the water is stirred up, and when I'm going, another steps down before me, so I can't be healed." And to which Jesus said to him, "Get up, take your bed, and walk." In other words, Jesus saying, get up, take your bed, go home. Start doing what you need to do to live as a healthy man, and start taking responsibility of your life. Stop laying down here anymore. Jesus never says, be healed. Jesus never performed any sort of healing process on him. Jesus just tells him, get up, go home, and start living your life normally. And it tells us, so this is the sequence that's really interesting, right? So Jesus says to the man, get up. It says, at once the man was healed. The healing happened, and then he took up his bed and he walked. There is a lesson that we can learn here. When Jesus says to the man, get up, healing flowed through the man. But the man had to make a choice whether or not he's going to listen to Jesus and get up, then he would experience the healing. Or he could choose to ignore Jesus because Jesus hasn't pronounced any healing on me. Right? He hasn't said, you are healed. Trust me, you are healed. Come, let me hold your hand. Let me help you up. Let me prove to you that you're healed. Jesus just tells him, get up, take up your bed, go home. Now the man had a choice to make. The healing had already happened. But in order to find out whether he was truly healed, it depended on his choice. Whether he's going to listen to Jesus, get up and pick up his bed, or he's going to continue to lay there and continue to wait for someone to pick him up by the hand, for someone to show him you are really healed, or maybe to wait for someone to carry him into that pool. He had a choice to make. And the good thing is, he made a choice to get up, pick up his bed, and he walked. He experienced the healing because he was willing to listen to Jesus. There is a lesson about change here. The man's life was changed immediately when he encountered Jesus. From 38 years laying by the pool, crippled, right? Immediately Jesus spoke healing to him. He made his choice. He got up and he walked. But change oftentimes is not the easiest thing. The whole process in the Bible presents to us a picture of healing that was so easy. It just happened like that. Right? But I guess for the man to make that choice after lying there for 38 years to get up. Now you try lying down for a whole day, right? And try getting up at the end of the day. It's really difficult, right? It's really difficult. You know, I remember once I was so sick, right? I was down with influenza. I'd never been so sick in my life, right? The fever was so high. You know, I just had no strength at all. You know, and I was just in bed the whole day. And it just went on and on for 4 days until at the fourth day, I was not healed. I had to be admitted to the hospital, right? And in the hospital, you know, the fever was still really high and they had to put drips and they had to put medicine into me. And by the end of the day, of the first day in the hospital, I began to get better. And I was like, you know what? I've been lying down for 4 days, literally, you know, couldn't move, right? And now I'm feeling better. I need to get up. I need to start moving, right? I got up and I had wobbly legs, you know. My legs were so wobbly. And you feel lightheaded. You just feel so different. You don't feel yourself at all. You know, I had pins and needles in my leg. You know, and you know, I decided, you know, I need to get moving. So the next day I felt really good. You know, there was still fevers, but I was getting down. So I started walking about, right? Putting that IV thing all over, just walking around, just trying to get myself back, you know, as normal, get myself moving. It was difficult, but, you know, once you get through that process, it gets easier and easier. Now imagine this man lay there, never moved. He laid there for 38 years. That's a really difficult choice to listen to what Jesus said to him. Get up And Jesus says to him, get up by your own strength. Because you can do it. And you need to do it. And if you want to experience the healing, you must do it so that you can experience the healing. And he had to make a decision. Change. It's difficult. It's never easy. But it is necessary. It is possible. It's difficult to change, right? When you're in a relationship that's struggling, it's really difficult to bring yourself to that point where I'm no longer going to blame my other person in that relationship. I'm going to make the changes myself. If I have to humble myself, I will do it. If I have to wash the dishes every evening, I will do it. I will be the change. It's very difficult to make a change. But if you know what you want to achieve, you want a difference in your relationship, you will put in the effort. It is necessary. And once you begin to put in the effort, see the necessity of change, you will begin to see that change is possible and change can happen to your life. Right? You want to have better finances? It starts with a difficult choice. I'm going to start budgeting. I'm going to start putting out portions, percentages for spending, and I'm going to keep myself to a strict discipline. I'm not just going to sit there and pray over my finances and wake up the next day without changing my spending habit, without making without being more disciplined. I'm just going to pray over it and pray that God increase my bank figures supernaturally, miraculously. If it happens for you, let me know. What did you pray? How did you pray? Because I want to know it myself, right? Don't ask me to pray that prayer for you because I can't. If I can, I would have prayed for my own finances first. But then change is necessary. So you start doing what you need to do, and slowly you begin to see God helping you in the area of self-control. God starting to help you in the area of opening up doors for you. God begin to help you when you start to make the changes. You see the results. And you also begin to see the hand of God helping you in ways that you have never thought it was God who was helping me all along. You want to break free from an addiction, you have to begin by saying no. Cut off from whatever is creating that addiction. Cut off from whatever is causing you to fall into sin. Cut off from whatever that's causing you to fall into temptation. Take that first step. It's always difficult to take that first step to change. It's always difficult to get up at 6:30 in the morning because you've made that resolution to exercise, to be healthier. But then when you start doing it, the first day is not going to be easy. The first week is not going to be easy. Sometimes the whole first month goes by and you're still struggling. But keep to it, stick to it. Know the reason why you are doing what you are doing. And pretty soon you'll find that it's really easy and it becomes part of you. It's difficult. You see the necessity, and suddenly you find it is actually possible, it's doable, and then a better person comes out. And that's what people of faith should be. People who are willing to change. So are you willing, right? If you want change to happen in whatever areas of your life, are you willing to work together with God? To get up, to get out, to start moving in the direction that God has set for you. And I like how the passage of Scripture concludes in verse 14 when Jesus went back to the man, right? You don't really hear this about Jesus. Jesus oftentimes heals a person and either that person follows Jesus or it's a one-time encounter in which that person leaves being healed. But this man was hanging around in the temple and Jesus found him. And Jesus goes up to him and he says to him, "See, you are well. Sin no more so that nothing worse may happen to you." Now it sounds like a really, really harsh thing to say, right? But you see, Jesus was not being harsh to this man. In fact, Jesus was demonstrating grace to this man when he finds this man once more. He knows this man has been there for 38 years. It takes more than just one single command to change his life. And so Jesus goes back to this man and says, hey, you are healed. That's wonderful. But now I have another thing to tell you, another reminder for you. Number one, stop sinning, all right? Don't defraud people of their money. Don't pretend to be sick. Don't beg for money. Get a proper job. Go and work. That's literally what Jesus is telling him when he says stop sinning, right? Another thing is Jesus is telling him that if you stop sinning, you will not face the consequences. But if you keep sinning, one day something worse might happen to you. Jesus was actually telling him that sin has its consequences. So stop. I'm preventing you from the earthly and the spiritual consequences of sin. So what Jesus was doing is Jesus was guiding this man towards spiritual success. Jesus was guiding this man on the right path, in the right direction. Jesus didn't just say, get healed, go figure out your life. Jesus came back to this man and taught him how to live and the direction in which he should go so that this man can experience spiritual success in his life. And I think this is a very beautiful lesson to conclude this entire sermon today. Change requires us to constantly and consistently move in the right direction. In the right direction, not the wrong direction. Okay? I remember recently I was driving about, right? I had to go to a place somewhere in town, in PJ area. And I know PJ very well. I looked at that place, I know that place. I decided I'm not going to use Waze. I'm just going to go and I'm going to get there. Because I know, in my mind, it's like a Waze, right? Because when you're so familiar, you kind of map out where the road is and all this. So you know, right? So I started off on my journey without realizing that the highway has 4 exits. And at that moment, I panicked because I was driving at 80 and I was arriving at the 4 exits. I had to make a decision. Where was the signboard that was hanging? In my mind, there was a signboard that would say very clearly the place where I wanted to go. And I reached there was no signboards. There was one exit that was really vague, that you didn't know if you go to this exit or whether it was this exit that would lead you to that place. And I was like, at that moment, there was a car behind me. There was no other way to go. I had to make a choice. And I was like, mini, mo. I made one choice and it was the wrong direction. I went the wrong direction. It cost me a fortune. It delayed my time from I was supposed to arrive there. I had timed myself really accurately. I calculated it would take me 30 minutes, so I really left giving myself only 30 minutes to travel and reach at that place sharp on time. Right? It wasn't really an important appointment. But then because of that mistake or that carelessness or that refusal to turn on Waze, right? I made a wrong choice, entered the wrong lane. It took me to another part of the town. I had to make a U-turn back. And on the way back, I got caught in the off-work jam. Right? I had to pay an extra toll. And I had to come back to point A and begin my journey again. I was delayed by almost an hour, right? And I learned my lesson, right? No matter how familiar you are with the road, turn on Google Maps, turn on Waze. It places you on the right direction right from the beginning. Saves you the toll money, saves you the hassle, saves you that trouble of making a mistake and going in the wrong direction, right? Right direction means making the right choices in life, right? So once God comes, God changes your life. You've experienced the change that has happened in your life. You've experienced the positive impact of change. You've gone through the difficult moment. Now stay on the right path. Continue to make right choices in life. Continue to do what is right. And that's how you experience spiritual success in life. Sometimes we think earthly success is important. It's great if you have earthly success. But it's even better if you have spiritual success. If you have earthly success and spiritual success, you are the most blessed person on earth. But even if you don't have earthly success yet, right? Spiritual success is something that you can experience every day in your life. All you need to do is to make the right choices in life. Keep going in the right direction. Don't turn away from the right direction. Don't go in the wrong direction just for fun. Don't go in the wrong direction just to try it out. Right? When you're on the right path, stay on the right path. I've never seen anyone who is on the right path and says to themselves, I think I need to stop and turn around and experience the wrong path for a moment. Is anyone here who is like that? You're on your way to your holiday, and for some reason you are like, I think I need to go backwards a little bit. Just make a U-turn. Go on the opposite side of the highway and experience what is it like to be going away from my holiday. No one would do that, right? You want to get to your destination. You want to be on the right path. Isn't that right? And that's what we should do in our life. You want to experience spiritual success? Keep staying on the right path. And that's how you will achieve spiritual success. Let us all pray.